Hello. Greetings, family. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Blended Circle with Mahlatse. My name is Mahlatse Mdluli, and next to me is my husband, Sicelo Mdluli.
Hello, family. Hello, my wife.
Hi, love. So, guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. It's so good to be here, and it's good to have you, and thank you for taking the time to be here. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell and share this episode and like and make noise on your social media platforms just so we can reach another family. So today we are talking about side effects of building a blended family. Guys, building a blended family is not for the faint-hearted. I guess so is life, right? But I can tell you now, if you are not a person who lives beyond themselves, building a blended family might not be for you. But anyway, we're not here for that. Today, we want to talk about the side effects of building a blended family. So some of it will be what we experience, but some of it would be what we observed other people experience, not necessarily that we went through that. So one of the first side effects I want to talk about is the loss of relationships. Yeah, the loss of relationships. Do you want to open that one?
Okay. This one I think it's universal because there are very few people that embark on this journey and keep all their relationships intact. I think it starts with a loss of friendships, other relationships. In my case, it was the divorce first.
Yeah,
sure. I lost a chunk there, mainly around who was to blame. It's easy for us humans to apportion blame in things that we don't understand. So, and then the decision to remarry also brought a lot of misunderstanding, which reduced the number that was there of relationships, especially friendships. And I think we need to clarify that it's normal. It's not something you can, hold against people.
No.
Because every relation we have, every friendship, I'll just use friendship as an example. I have what I get out of the relationship. The other person has what they get out of the relationship.
Yeah.
And when that is threatened, it then causes people to go into a cocoon.
Yeah.
Try and save themselves. Yes, their safe place.
Yeah.
That is what particularly happened in my case. And because of that, I had to be the one that understands that some relationships had reached their logical conclusion. Some I needed to apply patience so that they understand why I'm doing things, because mostly the friendship are destroyed because there's an unwillingness to understand what is happening.
That's
and
true.
There's just a fear that grips that, oh, I've lost this friend to this union or marriage or whatever it is. So one would have to have patience if you feel the friendship is worth fighting for. For the person to rather experience, rather than being told, rather experience your new self and make their mind up for themselves.
Yes.
Or they then decide, no, it's not worth it for them. Some relationships, because of shock, sometimes it's just a shock that circumstances have changed. Those, especially people you consider close, you need to just give them time, they'll come around. So for me, an example, I had friends that I was close with. I lost a lot of them because they were common friends with when I was married. And some of them stayed, but when I decided to remarry, they felt a betrayal. They felt continuing with me would be a betrayal to what they had before. Some of them I lost indefinitely. Some of them it took time, up to 3 years, 4 years, and I see them coming back because the person has not changed, just the circumstance. And they've said as much that, oh, we thought this would mean that. And when they see that, no, it didn't necessarily mean that, still the same person, they are happy to continue with the friendship. Then mostly family, my extended family, because of their affinity to my children.
Sure.
Had an issue with me remarrying.
Sure.
But those are the ones I just decided to leave alone. They quickly came around because they are relatives. You can't really run away from me forever. So
it's a very interesting one. Your relationships, those get really complicated from the time of the divorce. If you've been married before, it becomes interesting. So a lot happens there. Then you get married again, more happens. And I like what you said about the fact that we shouldn't take it personal. We shouldn't blame people, because when you were talking about how people want to have something to blame or someone to blame, I feel like that's what happens usually when people want some kind of closure. It's like when someone dies. Did you notice that then suddenly the discussions are very weird? Like suddenly there's someone who killed somebody. I mean, something so hectic. I mean, how do you get to a place where you say, this person killed this person? It takes a lot. But people find it easier to point at something, then they find their own closure. And it makes it easier for them. And this is why it's important for us not to take it personal, because I feel like, let people grieve the whole thing the way they see fit, and give people time. I find that works a lot. It gave people time because sometimes people come around. Like in your case, you talked about the fact that it took 3 years, for some 4 years, but some people came around. And be okay with letting go of certain relationships for good, like make peace with that. And then I think in my case, I personally experienced a few losses as well, more when I decided to remarry, but I didn't suffer that much of loss. I think I had a very good support from my family and extended relatives. I mean, I think you would probably.
Yeah, it helps if you have a lot of them. When
Yeah.
there are only two,
I have millions.
it's an issue.
Yeah, I have millions. So I was, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate my family for that. It was just amazing. But for some people, they experience different, you know. And I think fear did come to some. I mean, yeah, some people then ask themselves, is she making the right choice? Is it? I mean, I remember my mom, particularly, it was funny. You know, when you are going to remarry, and usually I find that when guys get married the second time, they usually get married to someone younger, much younger than them. So I remember that in our case, because I'm younger than you, my parents were a little worried that, okay, but, oh, this guy was married before. Yes. And he has children. Yes. And then I remember my mom was very clear about how long has he been divorced for before you met with the guy. She was so concerned about that because she wanted to be sure that I'm not breaking any rules in trying to build something of my own. So basically the foundation is supposed to be right. She's praying I'm not breaking someone else's home to build my own. So that was one of the things I thought was very interesting. I didn't get upset, but I was rather very happy that she cared enough to find out that you are starting off on the right foundation. And so there's a lot that comes with deciding to build a blended family. So some of the side effects that we talk about is maybe being misunderstood. Like you touched a little bit on that, but I want us to go into the space misunderstanding. How do people misunderstand you?
I think for me, it goes back to the relationship that you have. Relationship is based on assumptions.
Yeah.
There are certain assumptions that we have of each other that that keep us in relationship. So they maintain this relationship.
Yeah.
And if those are put into question, for example, for the longest time, I had friends who were married. Almost all my friends are married.
Of course.
We had something in common. And that was an assumption that we are friends because we have this commonality. When that gets taken away, fear comes in. Right? So there's a lot of misunderstanding.
Sure.
That, oh, okay, now that you're divorced initially, what do we have in common? And then you want to get remarried. The remarriage comes with its own dynamics. For instance, our children were friends. And now you are introducing another set of children into the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's not always clear how they must relate to these children vis-a-vis these children. Because it is us that's blending, it's not them. So there's a lot of misunderstanding. And again, patience needs to be the key word, because in as much as you can try and explain, initially it may not make sense. Again, because of the fear that the person has of the situation, also because of the lack of understanding of what blending is all about. We may have a better understanding slightly than the person that is outside of it may have no understanding. They may just see it as something that has come to disturb their peace. Especially in my case, I saw that with relation to my children. People knew I was close to my children. I was always with them. I was invested. And then suddenly there's another set of children, a person with children. It's like another life. I'm introducing another life.
Yeah.
And they were worried how that will affect the relationship I had with my children. In as much as they may have been justified, they were not privy to what was going on and what we were putting in place to make sure that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of misunderstandings, but that's what comes to mind now.
Yeah, and those misunderstandings, they're really stemming from a place of fear. All of them. Like, it's the fear of an unknown thing, you know? When you don't know something, it always threatens you in one way or another. And I think the panic, when it happens, people start making very drastic, decisions, and everything starts looking like, oh my God, what just happened? It's like you get in and then it's like a whole wind blows you away and you're like, okay, what's going on? And it's all because everyone gets shocked and then everyone goes for cover, whatever that looks like for everybody. And I think building a blended family, we have to acknowledge that it brings a lot of change. It does create a lot of questions and anxiety for people. And you must acknowledge that. Don't blame people.
Don't fight it.
Yeah.
Also.
Yes, don't fight it and don't blame people for feeling what they're feeling and then acting the way they're acting as a result. And I wanted to really just quickly go back to the part, the relationships, because some of those relationships that you feel like you almost want to hold on to, some of them honestly are better off at a distance because some of them continue to serve your children if they're not serving you. Yes, because if they're in your past, they somehow have this thing, that this place in your children's life that keeps a certain level of consistency and a belonging for them. I don't know if I make sense by saying that. Yeah.
We had the incident where my children would, if there's something they don't understand, would run to my siblings.
Oh, yeah.
And my siblings would come to their defense naturally because they feel, oh, these children probably don't have a voice.
Yeah.
They're not treated well because now they're probably they're secondary in terms of priority and all of that. And while that was noble, there came a point where I had to say, look, no, these are my children. So in as much as I appreciate your intervention, your advice, they are my children. And there's a process that we want to follow in order to blend. Unfortunately, part of that process will involve a bit of pain
Yeah.
here and there.
There's friction.
And unfortunately, in as much as they didn't choose to be in this, they're in this by virtue of
Being
my
your
association,
children,
their association with me. So we have to go through this as a family in order to get to where we want to.
Sure.
And protecting them or trying to protect them against their reality is going to be counterproductive. And this was probably 2, 3, 4 years, 3 years later. It wasn't immediate, because immediately you almost understood that they're looking out for them. But when you see that you've come a certain way and the children need to grow
into this
new reality
dynamic,
then I had to put my foot down and say, no, I actually want it to be like this because there's an end in sight. So that's an example of an intervention that initially was welcome, but at some point it became unwelcome.
It's very interesting that like no matter how much, like in my case, how I say my family was so supportive, but at the same time, they can have a bit of some fears in terms of how the kids are now being treated as well. It's a thing for, like, with everyone. And the reason why we talk about it now, it's so that you know that you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of the process. People will become uneasy about certain things, and you have to give everyone time and make them feel seen and not disregard them altogether, because it's not okay for you to want to blame people for feeling the way they feel. Pella, they're related to your kids, and it's okay for them to feel that. It's just that feeling cannot become your deciding factor on how you're going to now structure your family, because you can't build anything on fear. It's like you're firefighting when it looks like this one brought a concern like this. Now you have to consider, okay, love, I think we must check how we are now doing the visitation with the kids. Now, like, your life will be hard. You will always be like 10 steps back, and life will just be dictating to you what you're supposed to do and how your life is supposed to look like. And you don't want that for yourself. You want to be able to make a decision and face the consequences that come with that decision, but you know the end from the beginning, where it's going eventually. And in doing so, you don't want to kill people along the way. You want to bring them along, because you're going to need them. In the fuller picture, at the end of the day, we want everyone to be there when we get there. That is the point at the end of the day. So you start trying to find a way to build and manage the different relationships in the process as you go along. It's very important. Don't disregard setting, especially family. Don't play around that. It's important. Do it the best way you can and manage it the best way you can. I think I want to check if we are covering all of it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, this one is tough. But anyway. Yeah, so the lack of support. Some of the side effects that are there is that people lack support from their community. So the community being not necessarily just the relationships you had, but like we are in church, there are some people who suffer a lot of rejection from church community because there's a certain level of judgment that comes into the picture. From people who are watching from a distance and people who don't know how to even relate with the idea of someone who's been married before getting married again.
Look, it's one of the things, maybe you can talk more about that. It's one of the things that come with the territory, especially in a church setting. There's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen in order for us to learn or relearn or learn a new thing.
Yeah.
So the prevailing dogma was that if you divorce, you don't marry.
Yeah.
And with new revelation, the church largely, or some churches, have been able to give perspective to the writings in scripture concerning that. And but there's a lot of people that have held such beliefs dear. So obviously they are going to frown upon anything that resembles what they are not familiar with.
Yeah.
And that causes people to withdraw their support. For you personally, never mind the marriage that you want to get into, but they feel like we can't support this, we can't then continue being in fellowship with this kind of arrangement. I think it boils down to what we're talking about. There's a time factor that is required for people to see that, oh, okay, you're not really gone to the dogs, you're still a Christian, you're still a believer, you still believe in the same thing.
You're not a heathen.
Yeah, I believe then the church has a role there in terms of educating people. And that's if you are in a church that supports you.
Of course.
Because you can also find yourself in a place where you're not supported, where your actions are not supported. But where there is support for the understanding, because it's based on Christ's redemption, that, oh, once you mess up, it can never be well with you. That's not the kind of Christ we believe in. So the church has a responsibility to teach, to shed light on the matter. And that then usually helps in getting people to let go of their long held beliefs.
We were very blessed to have so much support from the church. I mean, the churches that we know of are so supportive in terms of this particular subject matter of building blended families. And I'm proud of that because I've seen quite a couple of leaders in churches that are saying, you know what, we have this ministry, but we don't know how to approach this particular area when it comes to the marriage or the couples fellowship. So maybe sometimes, most of the time, we're finding that churches are not really covering that part because I think there was a stigma, as you're saying, that they've had to find a different expression and for this thing, an understanding rather. And it's new for most people and it's understandable. And I want to take the opportunity to actually encourage families who have found themselves in churches where they did not really get the support that they need from the church when they decided to remarry, or they moved into that church as a blended family already and they found that, you know, somehow there's a cold shoulder sort of. I want to encourage you to be very understanding of the church as well, because it's a process. Everyone has their own convictions. And if you feel you're not able to take it as much, you can always just pray for a home that will be able to support the life that you want. Because church is such a heart of one's, walk of faith. It's very important. Fellowship is one of the biggest tools that God really uses to get to us. So you want that place to be a safe place for you. Otherwise, you can find yourself really straying away from God if that is not safe for you. So I also want to take the opportunity to say that we are open to churches that are for that kind of support for blended families. We're open to helping them, establish that ministry or even establish a support group or just bring that dynamic once in a while in your couple's ministry where you teach on blended families so that blended families feel included. Because, I realize that a lot of blended families struggle even to appear in church as a blended family. You'll find people just come as them and then they bring to the front what they believe could be acceptable and they're leaving everything else behind. Like if children have to come over for holidays only of the other spouse, so during those holidays they're hardly really showing up in church. They don't necessarily involve those children so that they don't have to explain themselves. People don't know what to do with this thing. So we want to be able to have access to churches so that we can liberate families, because we believe that, so many families are actually blended, And so let's make room for that area as much as we can. Yeah, to set people free. And then one last point is the one for the fear that grabs the children, the side effects of building a blended family. That last one, the one that goes for the kids. I'm going to start by saying there's a reason why we really encourage couples to fight for their marriages as much as possible. Your first marriage. There's something that's taken lightly when it's your first marriage, You're just taking things for granted. You almost think that it's okay. If I can't live with this, I can go. I can just walk away. And at that time, you have 3 kids, running around. There's a 2-year-old somewhere. There's a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, or even worse, there's a 1-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old playing around in your house. But you think you can just decide to walk away. My goodness, I can't emphasize it enough. If there's a chance for you to fight for your marriage, find help. There are people like us who I know that God has really graced us with the ability to help people rescue their own marriage, their first marriage, because we understand the pain of going through a divorce and starting another family, this blended family. This thing is not for the faint-hearted, like I said. If you can save your children from this, by all means, please consider everything there is to consider. Because most of the time, we struggle in our relationships because we are struggling with ourselves. It's not always because of the relationship. I know some people are going through emotional abuse, whatever abuse that comes with that marriage. And I'm not saying stay in an abusive marriage, but I'm saying find someone who can help you reflect also on the things that you're finding difficult in your current marriage so that you can see what you can consider, because it's possible that you can fight better than you've done before. We're open to that as well because it has become so important for us because we know what effect this has on children. Guys, kids go through the most in trying to support us in our decisions. Sometimes our children are not saying a lot. Sometimes there are those children who know how to act out exactly how they feel. But I can tell you now, in one way or another, children are suffering as a result of this thing of divorce, then getting married again, it's a lot for them. It's quite a lot. We have tried to simplify it as much as possible in our lives, but we had to go through all this work that we do, not just what we're presenting to you, because by the time we're doing YouTube, guys, we've gone through quite a lot of things that we're talking about now. But we've had to put in a lot of work to try and demystify a lot of things, even for the children, because children have so much that they suffer, so much loss that they suffer, because your relationship with your parents is very different from a relationship between a husband and a wife. Very different. You can get over whatever that you go through with your husband or your wife, but children cannot. They just can't live without their parents. There's a certain way they expect to live with their parents that they're not necessarily in control of, but unfortunately they have to sort of adapt to whatever that comes their way. So we even talk about the fact that we can't really protect them from the effects of their own life forever. But the truth is, at the moment, that life that we call their own, we call it their life because they are associated, they're affiliated somehow to us. And because of the choices that we make in trying to build our life as well, because this is our life. We only have one life and we have to live it. You can't stop your life because you have to consider everything. That's not how life works. But at the same time, if it was possible to protect children as much as possible from the effects of how we choose to relate, it would be totally great. With the help of God, of course, because, that's all I have to say. That side effect has been such a thing for me because, and all of it is not really as a result of things that are really happening. Some of it is just misunderstandings. Perception. Actually, most of it is perception. So one thinks, my dad doesn't love me enough. That's why he's not doing this. And that stays with you forever. It becomes a rejection that you experience. And sometimes no one is rejecting you, but you're a child. That's all you see. That's what you then suffer. So as a result, the spirit of rejection gets introduced into your life. And we all know the effects of experiencing rejection or perceiving rejection in your life. That thing can really send you to, I don't know what highway. And by the grace of God, some of us healed from that. And God restored us to a place where we get to know who we are and are able to receive love again. But the effects are just too many. It would have to be a whole episode where we talk about that side effect alone because, it's something. But I think we will cover it when we do the growing up in a blender, especially with, I'm going to be doing that with my siblings. That's why it's taking long. It's literally about, who's where, when, because we don't stay in the same place. But I can't wait for us to do that because in that episode or two of them, you will then be able to see some of the effects and understand them, in depth.
Yeah, I think you've covered all. I had the unfortunate experience of my daughter saying, I thought you stopped loving us.
Sure.
And it was a big wake-up call because I took a lot of things for granted. But it goes to show that a random act can have that effect.
Yeah.
And if it's not addressed, it will take root in the child. I know of a lot of people who are grown up and they have such strange relationship with their father who loves them.
But they don't know how to receive this.
As soon as he behaves in a way they don't expect,
Sure.
it comes back, no, he never loved us.
Yeah.
That's why he left us. That's why. And you're older, you're supposed to know that, no, he left for this reason, which makes sense. And
It's hard.
his leaving was beneficial ultimately to everyone. But you don't see that because this thing has taken root. And now it is just a reaction. It's part of your reaction that, oh, if anything happens that is not according to how you think it should happen, it is as a result of that.
Yeah, so, sure.
I think we want people to try and avoid that situation. And we'll talk about raising children in a blended family and talk about things, ways to raise your children in a manner that reassures them of your love.
Yeah, reassures them. That's right.
Reassures them of your presence, and even if you are not together and all of that. So
yeah, that is so good. Yeah, okay. Without trying to make this episode long as well, I think we covered quite a lot. I hope it was helpful to you. And I hope you are able to also share some sentiments that you might have to this particular discussion. We want to hear from you. We want to be able to interact with you. And guys, I'm even feeling in my heart how important it is for the community around us, everyone. I mean, even though you don't have an understanding of a blended family, this is just a plea and a reminder to you that exercise grace, extend love, extend patience. Your empathy as much as possible. Support a blended family around you. Hear them, see them, get to know them, get to understand where they could be coming from, because a lot of blended families, we are blessed that we are so liberated in Christ that we're able to do what we do and are able to just be open everywhere we go, in every space we go into. We come as we are. We're never anything else outside of this. But there are people who are still struggling there, and I always say that when you're going through your own pain, it's like being inside a clear tank and it's full of water, and you look like you're dancing inside the water, but you are drowning. And everyone is looking at a show, or someone is just looking and saying, what is this person doing? What are they trying to do? Because no one is coming close enough to see what you could possibly be going through. So if you know of a blended family, reach out, for the first time, have a conversation with that guy. If you're a man in a church, strike a conversation with that guy. If you're a woman, strike a conversation with that woman and stop thinking about her as a evil stepmom or whatever the case may be, whatever myths are there. Yeah, so that's it. That's my plea to you today. And on a lighter note, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. Share this, save a family, and share it with someone. I know it will save someone. So this is Blended Cycle with Mahlatse. We are redeeming communities one family at a time. And until next time, God bless you.